Hello, welcome back. We are back once again for some more Premier League preview action. Today, we're going to be talking about the Manchester derby and also the North London derby. It's going to be an absolute banger of a show, so make sure you subscribe. We're going to be live every 12:30 on a Friday, at 12:30 on a Friday. So do get into the comments. Make sure you're involved with all your questions, with all your points, but also anything that you think we need to talk about, get involved with that as well. Welcome to everyone that's stopping by on the stream, and of course, welcome to all the people that are watching it a little bit later on. Let's get into this party. Let's get into this party straight away because we've got two massive games in the Premier League. The World Cup's over, the Premier League's back, and I am so gassed for these high-level games of football. I think the first thing that we've got to talk about is the Premier League table right now, the standings, where the league is. Because these games are massive this weekend. Manchester United's game at home against Manchester City is vital. United only sit 4 points behind Man City. I would have taken that at the start of the season. But also, you're looking at the North London derby. Arsenal currently top of the Premier League, 5 points clear of Manchester City, facing Tottenham in 5th, who are chasing United for the Champions League. Guys, today we're going to go through all the team selections of both of the fixtures that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to dive into the tactics. We're going to look at whether Fred should play, whether McTominay should play in midfield for Manchester United. We're going to have a little bit of analysis done as well on the last derby and where I felt it went really wrong for United. So Prince, don't worry about that. We will be talking about whether United should go Fred or Christian Eriksen in midfield. But yeah, let's dive straight into the big one. Manchester United versus Manchester City, a humongous game. This game is big. This game gets me excited when I wake up in the morning. You just have this excitement around it, the feeling that it's going to be good. And I hope that it's not like the last Manchester derby. Of course, City beating United at the Etihad 6-3. There are a few things United need to do to not avoid that. In terms of the lineups, of course, we're using the wonderful SofaScore to dive into all the statistics and analysis. Make sure you guys check out SofaScore. There is a link in the description below. Manchester United have a few injury concerns going into this game, and I think one of the biggest ones is in the number 9 position. I think this will change a few things for Manchester United. United in the Premier League this season, they've kind of struggled with goals. If you're going to look from an objective position, United haven't scored enough goals in the Premier League this season, hence why we're seeing the likes of Weghorst joining the football club on loan with a deal that's around €3 million. But scoring 27 goals in 17 games isn't good enough to kind of challenge for a league title, and that's where Manchester United need to go next. Looking at Manchester City, they've scored 45 in 17 games. For me, that is one of the biggest things that they need to change. Weghorst will be joining Manchester United on loan from Burnley. He's a player that I absolutely love, and United need to get him ready for this game. Weghorst hopefully will be registered for the match, and I think he can make a really big impact off the bench. When you're looking at him as a profile of a centre-forward, it's almost like he's a player that City don't like playing against. You know, he's a physical, target man type player that's going to battle in and around that back post area, exactly where United could get at Manchester City. There is rumours that Anthony Martial might be out injured for the game, so Manchester United could look in a number of different ways. I think one of the interesting things for Manchester United from an attacking sense is how to balance it out in the transition. One of the worst bits of that 6-3 defeat was Manchester United's wingers dropping back and getting into good defensive positions. United need to get into that idea that this kind of defensive transition is so important. It's important against teams that counter-attack, but it's even more important against a team like Manchester City, because if they get in between your lines, we're talking if they isolate your kind of back four and your two defensive midfielders, they can really overload it with sort of thrust from fullback. So tracking and dropping back is really important. So if Anthony Martial obviously is not fit for the game. I think Manchester United should go with Marcus Rashford through the middle. He's got a great record against Manchester City in the Premier League, which would lead to Manchester United potentially trying something out. So here's a crazy idea. Pep Guardiola this week has spoke about crazy ideas. What I'd like Manchester United to do, if Martial is not fit from the start, go Rashford through the middle, actually move Antony to the left wing, Bruno Fernandes to the right wing, Eriksen into number 10, and then get in another defensive midfielder, be it Fred or Scott McTominay, to kind of screen that back four. I think the legs, the energy is really important. And why I'd like to see Bruno on this right-hand side of the pitch is he's very good from a defensive position. He's excellent off the ball. As soon as United lose the ball in the final third, he's someone that will chase back and create that kind of second band of four. We know that Eriksen's, puts the work in from a defensive perspective at Spurs. He was kind of top of their distance covered numbers for a long time. We know that Antony can get back, and it'll make United more of a compact structure and shape. And yes, it is slightly more defensive than going for the jugular, than, appearing at Old Trafford that you want to play as many attackers in the lineup as possible. But I quite like the idea of Bruno Fernandes on this right-hand side against City. And we'll go into a few ideas of why that's kind of important. We'll do a little bit of analysis. We've got a few different sort of screenshots from that game. One goal in particular, the Haaland goal, was kind of really opened up Manchester United's shape, and I really feel Bruno Fernandes, dropping back and getting into that kind of right midfield position, really, really important. Prince with a question in the chat. Exactly what I thought. Bruno has to play on the right, but Antony on the left-hand side. Guarded Vieira as well. Antony's a better defensive player as well. I think the big thing with Antony as well, playing him on this left-hand side, the benefit you're going to get is he's going to play very direct. I think Rico Lewis will play for Manchester City at fullback. I think he'll play that position, moving into the inside area to join Rodri. He's done it so well. I went to the Manchester City Copenhagen game in the Champions League. He played, and I was really, really impressed with his maturity, his skills on the ball, his selection of pass. So what we'll actually see with City's build-up shape in this game, as we've seen quite a lot in this season, I think what they'll go to is kind of this 3-2-5 structure, where Manchester City have the ball. We'll have Rodri and Lewis in the kind of midfield area, very much Lewis playing as an inverted wing-back, moving into that area, and Akanji, Laporte and Ake creating that back three. Why I think Antony could be really, really useful in this position is because he's naturally going to pull wide, left-footed, left-hand side. When I've seen Antony play on the left wing for Ajax under Erik ten Hag, he was really good at getting to the byline and getting crosses into the box. At times when Antony plays on the right, we see too much of him, dribbling, trying to cut inside and shoot. What we'd see from Antony on that left-hand side could be that ability to take, the opposition into the wide areas. Why I would start with Antony on the left-hand side is because I feel he's a little bit more defensively switched on than Alejandro Garnacho. But Garnacho, super sub off the bench, will give United a lot. So I'd like to see that. Antony left-hand side, Bruno Fernandes right-hand side, and then Garnacho coming on later in the game when the game opens up, when there's more opportunity for him to take people in 1v1 situations. Judy in the chat, Fred will 100% start alongside Casemiro in the pivot. I think that's vitally important because of his energy, his work rate, and his ability to close the play down. Yes, Fred isn't the most gifted footballer on the ball, but I tell you what, his work rate is absolutely first class. But yeah, bringing Garnacho on late into the game, again taking Akanji into those 1v1 areas, I think is vitally important for Manchester United. But of course, Antony at the start, up against the Kanji 1v1, allowing Marcus Rashford to play in these advanced areas. And we know that Bruno's good at arriving late into the penalty area. So all I want to see from United is very much from a counter-attacking perspective, attacking down Antony's side, allowing him to carry on the dribble on this kind of back three. Because what we'll see with Lewis in that central position, it takes him time to get back out there. So there will be a moment in the transition where you could see that. We also know that Rashford loves drifting into that zone as well. So we could see potentially a 2-on-1 created with Akanji at moments, with Anthony on the overlap, with Marcus Rashford, potentially creating for Bruno Fernandes on that back stick, could be a really good way for United to get, to expose the City defence. City, of course, come into this game in really weird form. It's odd in a sense. I thought City would come back after the break and completely dominate. But they've been a bit hot and cold, in certain games. You look at the Everton game that they had, where Everton kind of sat deep, allowed a lot of the ball to Manchester City, but arguably defended quite well, with City only having 3 shots on target and drawing the game 1-1 with Everton in the Premier League. You move further to the Southampton game. Now, this was just a little bit weird in a sense. City just had no control of the game. And that's a really interesting part for Manchester United, because that suits Man United's squad. That suits Man United players, that if the game starts to become a little bit more open, like it did against Southampton, both of Southampton's goals were from, sort of a counter-attack, from winning the ball back in the City half or around the centre circle. Mahrez' goal was fantastic. The fullback, Lycon, intercepted the ball on halfway after some really scrappy play. That will suit Manchester United down to a T. Of course, Kyle Walker was trialled at centre-half in this game, and he didn't do well at all. Was beaten by Mahrez for the goal. And I think you're looking at the substitutions that Guardiola made with De Bruyne, Haaland, and Akanji all coming on at half-time, and Nathan Ake really trying to change the momentum of the game. So when you're looking at Manchester City, it's difficult to pick their strongest defence at the moment. That is the big problem for Guardiola. Ruben Diaz's injury has massively affected them. He's a player of brilliant quality, but it's the leadership skills that I feel is missing when he's not there. I don't think Laporte has that same ability to command the back four, and that's great for Manchester United. It really is. Callie in the chat, any chance of Garnacho, Dave? I reckon Garnacho off the bench would have the biggest impact. I wouldn't like to see him from the start. I'd like to see Anthony maybe on that left-hand side if Anthony Martial's not fit. Of course, Anthony on the right-hand side if Martial is fit, and Bruno Fernandes at 10. Obviously, this is dependent on the injuries of those guys. But back to Manchester City, their defence at the moment is an absolute mess. And their team, in a way, is an absolute mess. Structurally, this is the worst City I've seen for a bit of time. But that doesn't mean Guardiola can't fix these things, really easily in a game or a game or two. Because we've seen them, as I mentioned, hot and cold since the restart. That defeat to Southampton in the EFL Cup, not great, but they've just come off the back of beating Chelsea 4-0 in the FA Cup, which was a great performance. Of course, Chelsea is struggling at the moment, but City still played well. Riyad Mahrez, man of the match with 2 goals in that game. So going back to the City sort of questions, of course, we spoke about them out of the back. We spoke about them kind of how they're going to be building up. The forward positions is quite an interesting one. Of course, Gundogan played more of a holding midfielder in the last derby for Manchester City, sorry. But I expect Rodri to come back, Gundogan to be pushed into a higher position. The question marks are, Bernardo, where does he fit in this 11? Does he play wide right? But I don't know if you can ignore Riyad Mahrez and his form at the moment. Mahrez loves a goal in the derby as well. So maybe we would expect Riyad Mahrez to play on that right-hand side, De Bruyne inside. Haaland through the middle, of course, was rested in the EFL Cup from the start. Came on after around 50 odd minutes. And then we've got Gundogan inside and Foden wide left. The other alternative, we saw Phil Foden actually play central midfield in the game against Chelsea. Played more as a kind of left central midfielder. And I think Guardiola might do this. Guardiola's spoken about doing something a bit different, a bit crazy in this game. And I think it could be Phil Foden in a advanced area with Jack Grealish on the wing, because Jack Grealish was very, very good in the last derby between the two Manchester clubs. We flip back to that game, the 6-3. Obviously, I don't want to keep revisiting this as a Manchester United fan, but we have to learn from it. Grealish that day was was really good from a creative sense. Opened up a number of really good opportunities when the game kind of, broke down for Manchester United in those areas. And the big thing with that is who plays for Manchester United to contain Jack Grealish in those positions. And Diogo Dalot, of course, came off in the game midweek against Charlton after around 30 minutes. I thought he was having a very good game. I think his impact on Manchester United's possession game is massive compared to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think he's going to be fit for this game. I think he'll play. Judy, I think he'll play from the start. He is needed. I think from a possession perspective, especially from United, playing through and getting out is very, very important to see, because United will have their best moments once they've beaten that initial Manchester City press and getting into that final third and looking to create those opportunities from an attacking sense. That is where I see United could do that. Teams at the moment have seemed to have been able to play through Manchester City's press, quite well. And if United can do that, we're talking playing through and getting into those advanced areas, you're getting at the weak underbelly of Manchester City, and that is very, very important. And United are on a great run. They've won 20 games this season, which is the same as they managed the entirety of last campaign. But also Erik ten Hag is the first, is the fastest manager ever for Manchester United to reach those 20 wins. So United come into this in form. They have to contain Haaland, of course. Haaland has scored in every Premier League game apart from against Brentford, Chelsea, Liverpool and Bournemouth. And I think the situation there is, how do Manchester United control Haaland? Because he absolutely ran riot in the last Manchester derby, scored himself a hat-trick. I think part of it's stopping Kevin De Bruyne, stopping it at source. I think part of it's dealing with the wingers. Part of it's what we spoke about previously, United having to get back to compact shape. The other thing that I'd look at as well is potentially United dropping back to a three-man midfield to kind of deal with those bodies in between the lines and stop City playing through. I think the most successful teams playing City this season make it hard for City to play to those attacking midfielders, make it hard for City to progress the ball into Foden, into De Bruyne, into Mahrez, into Grealish, and then double up out wide. As soon as the ball is played into those wide areas, having a winger and a fullback basically doubling up on those attackers. The benefit of playing a three-man midfield in this game is you've got more, lateral coverage in a sense. And if, let's say the winger is caught a little bit high, that you can move out to Mahrez and you can still pick City up from a man-to-man perspective in those areas. And that's a big part of, one of the big concerns with playing Manchester City with just a double pivot. And we can have a look at some of the stuff from the last game, the last Manchester derby. Yes, this is actually when City are 4-1 up. But I thought this really highlighted my biggest concern for United when they were playing a 4-2-3-1 in this game and not three-man midfield flat. So we'll jump into the action. This is the fifth goal that City scored. I think first and foremost, United's pressure, especially in the second half, was pretty poor. Couldn't really get onto the ball, couldn't really close down the play, which obviously is an issue. You really need to stop City. And already from this position, if we think that, United are pressing with kind of like they've got three players, if they move to a 4-3-3 shape, they'd have more lateral coverage and could stop the pass into Kevin De Bruyne's feet, which is, a big problem for Manchester United and stopping that. So Gundogan breaks the lines. And City are in this position now, as we mentioned before, where it's Man City on your back six players. On the two defensive midfielders, we've got, at this point, I think we've got Scott McTominay maybe. Oh no, so I think that Christian Eriksen and Casemiro. But we've got a lack of movement from United's wingers to regain their positions. And this is a big, big problem because City will open you up. They'll pull your defensive midfielder over. They'll use the spacing behind that defensive midfielder. And then they'll pull the other DM over. And then they create options to score goals. So at this point, obviously, City have broken Man United's lines. You can see Sergio Gomez joining the attack. Again, Anthony should have done a lot better in a defensive position right now. Ball's worked over to Jack Grealish and we can start to see the issue. Casemiro has to move over, which creates space behind him. Eriksen's not compact enough. Obviously, Eriksen's naturally an attacker. We can't criticise him too much for not being in a compact position. But hence why I think Fred has to start the game is this problem of Eriksen not moving over and getting into that defensive position to stop the pass inside to Kevin De Bruyne, which consequently sees him thread the ball through to Gomez. And again, like, we've got the issue that Eriksen's too slow to shut the ball down. Fred in those moments needs to be really, really aggressive and moving over. And I think the three-man midfield is a little bit better. And what we see now, obviously, the consequent issue of this is you've pulled both defensive midfielders over. You've drawn them in. Now there is a cutback opportunity on the back post if you just move off the centre halves. And that's exactly what we saw for this goal with the space. You know, we could see both the Man United defensive midfielders being pulled over. Casemiro, Eriksen. Where's our left winger? That is a big concern, and that's why I think Man United need to go Bruno on the right-hand side, Antony on the left-hand side, because Antony does do his defensive work. We've got no left winger in this position, which makes it easy for City to pull the DMs over and creates a little bit of space off the line, which again is where City score from, and we've got two players from City in that position. No one from Manchester United. And that, I feel, is why potentially that three-man midfield is vitally, vitally important to Manchester United in those moments of the game. Really, really important. Maha, Dave, you're not streaming on Twitch anymore? No, we're going to be streaming here every Friday at 12:30. So make sure you come over, Mahad. I've missed you, my friend. Other points in here. Zolab, Fred will press, which I think is very, very important. Daniel in the chat. Welcome back, Daniel, as well. Would you play Fred over Eriksen if Martial is fit? Yes, I would. How we potentially go with that is I would potentially drop Eriksen and go Antony, Rashford, Martial as the 9, and then have a midfield of Fred, Casemiro and Bruno. And I feel like that's, you know, a little bit of a better position. I think they're vitally important that your central midfielders can move over and you've still got that coverage for Manchester United. So, yeah, great question, Dan. But, yeah, I'd probably drop Christian Eriksen, put Bruno into central midfield, Antony, Rashford, Martial. I kind of expect it to maybe be this 11 going into the game. And I think the big thing for United, if they can get it done, having Wout Weghorst off the bench could be massive. I absolutely love Wout Weghorst. I straight up love Wout Weghorst. I think he's a fantastic footballer, and he's underrated. I felt Burnley misused him in a sense. Burnley used him like a Ashley Barnes, like a Chris Wood. Weghorst is a lot more technical than that. You want to get balls into his feet, allow him to turn, allow him to thread the wingers in. I think that could be huge for United in the transition. You know, using balls into the feet of Weghorst and then allowing him to get his head up and feeding the likes of Antony and Marcus Rashford. He had a really good relationship with Baku for Wolfsburg. Baku played on the right wing, and there was 3 assists in the Bundesliga between Weghorst to Baku that was him linking on the transition. And I think having that physical target point when United kind of maybe defending or, you know, have a lead, you know what I mean? That's the perfect opportunity to bring him on. You know, Laporte, Akanji and Nathan Ake are not going to want to be playing a player of his size and his physique. So not only could he come on and change things for United in the transition, linking with those forwards, but of course in the penalty area, that's where he does his damage. And if United can break down this left-hand side, which I think is, you know, going to be vitally important, be it Rico Lewis or Carl Walker that's taken that inside position, there is an opportunity for Weghorst to attack that back post, and it's something that he loves to do. He loves to either be on the fullback and then attack it from that area, or be in between them and again run the blind side of that centre half. I think one of Weghorst's biggest strengths is movement is very, very good for a big lad. Very, very good for a big lad. So if United can get down that way, maybe have Luke Shaw join the attack on the overlap and then cut those balls back for Weghorst to attack on the back post, I think that'll be great. It will be really, really good. Juddy in the chat, City will control possession, 100% hit him on the counter-attack, hit him on the counter-press. Mahad, I remember you said Arsenal should sign Weghorst seasons ago. Absolutely. Like, this guy's a really good player. Like, I like him. You know, I mentioned the hold-up play. I mentioned him attacking that back post against Manchester City. One of the biggest statistics that I found this week, that he was ranked number 1 in the Bundesliga for distance covered for a centre-forward. He was ranked number 2 for sprints. they're great statistics. They are very good statistics for a player that's regarded as a target man. This guy puts the work in. And I think that's very, very important. Ad in the chat. Pep said he has a ridiculous plan against us before the exit from the Carabao Cup. Is that mind games or is he overthinking it? I think this plan is Phil Foden in an attacking midfield. I think that's Phil Foden in that inside left position. That's what I think this plan is. I think they're going to build with 3, 2 in midfield, but I think Foden in these kind of areas, I think that's what it is. And it might not be too ridiculous, but at the same time, I think it's there. The other things that potentially could come for it, maybe he's going to go with Julian Alvarez, maybe in that position, and we'll see City maybe play a little bit more like a bit of a diamond, where they've got the 2 wingers, and they've got Kevin De Bruyne sitting behind sitting in front of the 2 holding midfielders, shall we say. So maybe we've got Rodrigo, De Bruyne pivot. Like, that's a crazy idea. Like, that's a proper crazy idea. If we talk from a defensive position, it would be more like a 4-4-2 like that. That could be it. It's going to be like, it's difficult. Do you know what I mean? I think that there's a few ideas there that I could see Guardiola doing, but I do think it might be the Phil Foden use of the inside channel, guys. So, when that happens, we can all chat about it and be there. Edison at defensive midfield from Johnny. That might happen. Johnny, I would prefer Weghorst over Chris Wood. Yeah, that's again, I think I kind of said that around the signing of Chris Wood. I do like Chris Wood. I think he's a good footballer, but the football that Newcastle play, it just, like, Weghorst suits Newcastle a lot more, but unfortunately he's now at Manchester United. Weghorst was actually very good at pressing when he was at Germany from Juddy, absolutely. Rory in the chat as well. I think he has 6 minutes to be registered. The pressure's on, guys. It's like deadline day, this. Get that registration through. I'm super excited. I think that, another big thing as well with this team, with Weghorst in it, there's now a threat for Anthony in the box. Anthony to Allaire 3 times in the Champions League. One of the top combinations of assister to goal scorer. Anthony would check inside, cross the ball, inverted to the back stick. I think Weghorst opens Anthony's game up a lot more as well, guys. I really do. I think that it's one of these positions where Anthony at times looks and there's no one really in the box for him to cross to. We saw it a lot more at Ajax, so I think that's definitely something to hopefully be building on. Someone like Weghorst having that threat for Anthony. Same with Marcus Rashford. Rashford loves that check inside, cross to the back stick. I think it'll be really important for United to grow on that. What do you think the chances are United pulling off a surprise win, something like a 3 or 4-0? David, I don't think that's that much of a surprise. I generally think that what Man United have done over the last few months under Erik ten Hag has been very, very good. The improvement has been there. Since that defeat to City in the Premier League, the 6-3, United have only lost one game, one competitive game, should I say, against Aston Villa in the league. And there's goals, there's clean sheets in recent weeks as well. United have conceded 1 goal in their last 6 games. This is arguably the perfect time. United are in a good place. I think City are in a really weird spot. So I think this is a really good time to actually play Manchester City. Let's take a look before we get the score predictions in of a few statistics from that last game in the last Manchester derby. Of course, United won't want to revisit this too much, but Casemiro actually came off the bench in this game on around 59 minutes. Was quite combative in that central midfield area. Martial off the bench, 31 minutes, scored twice. Of course, won a penalty, scored the penalty. Some positive statistics for Manchester United. Apart from that, there wasn't much, positivity in there. Foden grabbed himself a hat-trick. Haaland grabbed himself a hat-trick and 2 assists. So he's someone that obviously United need to be dealing with. And I think he got the better of Lisandro Martinez in this game. Of course, Martinez had the better of him when he played for Ajax against Borussia Dortmund. So this is going to be a good one. But I do think it is about being aggressive in midfield. It's not allowing Kevin De Bruyne to run the show. 2 assists in the last derby. 3 shots on goal, but also doubling up on those wide players. That's where I think City will really flourish in those positions. Obviously, João Cancelo's going for a bit of an odd patch of form lately. He was absolutely horrendous against Southampton in there as well. So he's someone that I don't think will play, hence why I think Phil Foden in this inside channel could be the position. But talking statistics, we can't ignore Marcus Rashford and his form. Scored twice off the bench against Charlton midweek. Marcus Rashford has now scored in 8 home games in a row, equaling Wayne Rooney's record. And I think that is, testament to Marcus Rashford. 15 goals in the Premier League this season, 5 last season, 3 times the amount of goals already. This will be his best season for non-penalty goals, for total goals, for assists for me this season. He is absolutely flying. He is key in this derby. As we mentioned previously, he likes a goal. You think about what, he did to Di Michaelis at the Etihad all those years ago when he blew onto the scene, exploded in there. And when you look at his performances against City, I think he's due a goal. I think he's really due a goal. His last goal contribution came in the 2021 season where he grabbed an assist. So I think this is Rashford's game. I really do. I think Rashford is going to get, he's going to have a good amount of space on the counter-attack as well to explode. Running in the chat, Luke Shaw as a left centre-back, Martinez as a CDM, Casemiro as a centre-mid, Eriksen right wing. What are your thoughts? I think I'd prefer to, see Bruno Fernandes wide right, I think, in this game, to be quite honest. I think that work rate is really important. As what we mentioned previously, if Martial is not fit, getting Christian Eriksen in, playing Eriksen as a 10, getting Bruno to the right-hand side, Anthony to the left-hand side, Casemiro, Fred Eriksen is arguably like a free-man midfield, Rashford through the middle to play on the counter-attack, I think was vitally important for United to deal with the threat of City. Weghorst's tackles, interceptions and blocks are fantastic. Shaw crossing to Weghorst will be lethal. Are you happy with Casemiro? Yeah, Johnny, I really am. I think the big thing with Casemiro is he's arguably game has improved. Over the short time he's been at United, I think his game has got better. His passing is better. His ability to control a game has improved. So yeah, Johnny, I've been really happy with Erik ten Hag and how they've grown United. Apologies, the voice has just died. Any other thoughts, guys, for this game? Before we get into the score predictions, do get into the chat your score predictions. Manchester derby, Manchester United versus Manchester City. Rory's gone early, 9-1, easy, quad coming, choo-choo. Nishan is saying Fred plus Casemiro equals boom. I think that's definitely the pairing they've, I think it's got to be a 3. As we mentioned before, the coverage, the little tactical analysis we did. I think playing a 3-man midfield against City, basically United are playing a 4-5-1. I think the compactness of the lines needs to be important, and then you feed in Rashford on the break is going to be really, really good. Amal's going to go 2-1 United. SK is going to go 2-1 United. Nishal is going to go 3-1 United. Mo going to go 2-1 United. Johnny with a 1-1. United fans in the chat, would you take the 1-1? I'd probably take that, to be quite honest. Guard going to go 3-1 to United. Not even the best DM in Manchester from Danny. Of course, I do love Rodri. I really do love Rodri. Rodri's a fantastic footballer, but Casemiro's just got that great aggression. Yusuf's going to go 2-2. Alex in the chat, Bruno on the right wing, Dave. If you want to waste him on the wing, play him on the left wing, keep Anthony on the right. The only reason why I think Bruno on the right wing is to deal with City's attacking side, because that was the real danger, that they really created a lot of dangerous opportunities, and I think it's just for that defensive coverage from someone that's going to work exceedingly hard off the ball. And I think Bruno's not bad on the right. I think there's he's played the end of most games on the right wing, and he's still got that ability, the movement off the ball. For the Rashford goal against Everton, was it, in the Premier League? That ball over the top came from Bruno Fernandes, actually from a right-wing position, running in behind. So that's what I'd go with, in a sense. I just think that defensive work rate is very, very important. Dealing with Grealish and Foden, of course, Fred, Bruno and Dalot there, you're helping it. Too many times in the last derby, we saw Diogo Dalot versus Jack Grealish and no support around the ball. So I think that's very, very important. T-Jas is going to go 1-1. Tony, going to go 1-0 United. Adode is going to go 3-1. Habibu is going to go 3-1 to United as well. SK, I'd take a draw. City need to win. Draw is fine for top 4 for United. That's spot on. Officer's going to go 4-2 Man United. Shadrach's going to go 1-1. Daniel, welcome, is going to go 3-1. And Rory said he'd take a 1-1. A little bit different from the 9-1, but you've got to respect it. You've got to respect it. Great score predictions as always, guys. And again, we will be diving in to previews over the next few months, back into the season, every Friday, 12:30. Put it in your diary, live on this channel right now. Reason to drop a sub. Other score predictions coming in. Mighty Man's going to go 6-3 United. That would be lovely. And Ad's going to go 1-1. Dave, do you think Casemiro, Fred, pivot is better than Lisandro? Casemiro, yeah, Lisandro is a centre-back for me, guys. I think he excels out the back, playing through. I prefer that a lot more than him being in midfield. I think he's a brilliant defender. There's a clip from one of the last games where I think he makes a mistake. Lisandro made a mistake, lost the ball, the opposition attacking down the left-hand side, and it like breaks to one of the players on the right. They have a shot, and Lisandro's the one flying over and making that block. So I think he's better in that defensive position. I also think, Fred in that central midfield area gives good energy. Lisandro would be more of a static DM. Mo, my prediction for the game, this is a tough one. I think a draw, After talking about it today and talking to you guys in the chat, I reckon a draw. I reckon a 2-2 or a 1-1. A 1-1 is the one that's coming into my head right now, and I think that's a great result for United. It continues their good form. It's massive improvement from the 6-3. Don't get me wrong, I'd absolutely love it if United beat City. Like, that would be a great day. That would be a great moment. But, sometimes you got to take the little ones in there. And I think, look, going forward, United have improved. United are getting better. I'm really excited to see them in their progression. I'm so excited that I booked a flight to Barcelona to watch Man United in the Europa League. But yeah, great score predictions, guys. Great chat as always. Let's move on to the next big game. Humongous game. North London derby. Who would have thought Arsenal sit top of the Premier League after 17 games? You got to give big credit to Mikel Arteta. Massive credit to Mikel Arteta and how he's, grown Arsenal, how he's built the team, how the backroom, technical staff have built this squad as well. Like, they deserve a lot of credit. They really do. How they've molded this team of hungry players and young players as well. It's absolutely fantastic. From getting the likes of Odegaard, brought in to, Fabio Vieira this summer, to knowing that they needed someone like a Zinchenko in there. Arsenal have been absolutely spot on with their recruitment. Their style of football is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy watching Arsenal, which I think is big testament to, what they've done. But going into this match, I think one of the first things that we've got to maybe take a look at is that Newcastle game. Because Spurs will play in the same way. Spurs will sit deep. Spurs will soak up pressure and look to play on the transition. And you could argue, of course, there were some penalty situations that you could easily could have seen Newcastle have lost the game from the spot. But overall, they really contained Arsenal. And, that sort of combination of compact, of deep play, linking with a good transition will be how Spurs kind of approach this match. Spurs have been so hot and cold in the Premier League this season. They have been very, very weird. The statistic that came out from going into this game that was so crazy is Spurs have scored 73% of their goals in the Premier League this season in the second half. They've taken the lead in just one of the last 12 games. So, if I'm looking at putting a bet on this one, Arsenal to score first. It's a simple one, and Spurs maybe to come back, because that's what it's kind of, that's where it is right now in these moments. And I think Spurs are slowly improving. They're slowly getting better. The likes of Longley coming in, I thought from a possession perspective, I've been impressed with what Longley's done on the ball, playing like a kind of wide centre-back. But there's been moments where defensively he's exposed himself or he's been exposed by Spurs. And I think that could be a really key battle for Tottenham in this match. It's arguably that side of the pitch will be where the game is kind of won and lost in that sense. We've got Doherty out there. Doherty on the other side. More Ivan Perisic and Longley dealing with that kind of threat from Spurs. Expect Spurs to kind of play their arguably traditional 3-4-3 against Arsenal, and probably see it being set up like this. Longley as a left centre half, of course, Dyer through the middle, Romero, wing backs of Doherty, Perisic, Bentancur, Højbjerg in midfield, and Kulusevski, Kane, Son. Their problems have come at times as well with Spurs is when trying to play through, especially when teams are being compacted and around them. That's been a struggle for them. But I don't expect it to be, that type of game for Arsenal. I think Arsenal will come out and they will go on the offensive. I think controlling Harry Kane is vitally important for Arsenal. Harry Kane is the outright top scorer in North London history. He has 1 goal off Jimmy Greaves' goal-scoring record for Spurs. And he loves a goal against Arsenal. He scored more goals against Arsenal than any other club in the Premier League apart from Leicester City. It is about controlling him off the line. And I tell you what, Thomas Partey did a fantastic job controlling him in the last North London derby between the two sides. Really, really controlled the game from defence and midfield. And if Spurs do go for this 3-4-3 shape, I think we'll see Partey potentially having another really, really good game because there's naturally no one that's up and against him, which I think is something that Conte may need to look at to address. Because if Partey gets the freedom of of White Hart Lane, or not White Hart Lane, the new White Hart Lane, that'll be a situation for Arsenal to really gain an advantage in the match and really gain a foothold in the game. For them, no longer are we seeing Granit Xhaka being the deep-lying playmaker for Arsenal. He's pushed further up the pitch, and there's a position there. We could also, the other interesting side of this game is kind of how Arsenal, set up. How do they line up in this match? Because we've seen that Arteta in previous big games actually went with Tomiyasu as a left back. It worked really well against Mohamed Salah, containing him in the transition and dealing with them from that perspective. So that's also another little kind of sub battle of this match. Does Arteta go Zinchenko and properly play kind of inverted to dealing? I think the big thing for Spurs is Partey. As I mentioned, he absolutely ran the game in the previous North London derby earlier part of this season. When we look at the statistics of that match from Thomas Partey, Tottenham just didn't get near him. From a tactical perspective, we can see Arsenal's shape really good there. Zinchenko slightly inverted. Their 5 forwards nice and high. But Tottenham didn't really have anyone to match up with him. Could see the shape there. There's nobody really that's stepping out from midfield. Yes, Bentancur at times would get high and press, but you're looking at that kind of natural tactical space because of the shapes. And I think for Conte, the little tactical tweak that he could either go 3-man midfield, either Basuma comes in, and then you can press high, but I think that opens up other issues. If we have a look at that idea of maybe going with a 3-man midfield, I think there's still problems with Arsenal. If, let's say, Kulusevski drops back, they make a 3-man midfield, there's still issues where there's a natural overload because of Zinchenko's inverted play in that central area of the pitch. There's a natural 4v3 for Arsenal, whether it's Basuma or Kulusevski playing that position. I think the solution here for Conte is to go narrow with his attacking mids. So go narrow with Kulusevski and Heung-min Son, and then you're matching it kind of 4v4, and there's no longer that advantage, which means that Ben White might have a bit more freedom, which means Longley might have to deal 1v1 with Saka, but it'll mean that there's Thomas Partey doesn't get the freedom like he did at the Emirates. And looking at his numbers again, took a really good goal outside the box. Again, it was the front 5 was set for Arsenal. There was a lovely little pass back from Ben White, lovely shot from the edge of the box, which is starting to become a bit of a trend. That's the second time that's happened for Arsenal, with Thomas Partey scoring from the edge of the box. But he completed 52 passes at a 94.5% completion rate, created 4 chances, 3 of his 4 accurate long balls, 2 shots, 100% of his dribbles completed, 100% of his tackles won, 3 interceptions. He ran the show. So Spurs have really got to control that area. And I don't think it's Harry Kane dropping off and doing that. I think it's playing those 2 narrow attacking midfielders and playing more of a kind of 5-2-2-1 or a kind of 3-4-2-1 shape to really deal with that situation in there. Daniel in the chat, I fancy Spurs doing Arsenal on the counter-attack like we did. Always going to be an option. Always going to be there. And I think Heung-min Son starting a little bit more central as well and allowing him to kind of carry from in to out could work out quite well. Joe in the chat, Arsenal have played less top teams than anyone else. 2 matches against City coming up will dent their confidence. Joe's also saying next 3 games, 9 points for United, and we'll get very, very excited. Mo's saying, I don't want to be a hater, Dave, but Arsenal to lose. All great chat, guys. Being a United fan, it's ridiculous to wish for Arsenal to remain top of the Premier League table, but we don't want City to win 3 back-to-back titles. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like at that point where it's like anyone but Liverpool and City to win the league. But yeah, Arsenal in this game should take control of possession, should control the play. One of the concerns, obviously, for Arsenal has been the loss of Gabriel Jesus. I think Nketiah has come in and done really well from those forward positions. I think he's been bright, and I think the big thing is he's got into his sort of goal scoring run early. I think that would have been the biggest concern as an Arsenal fan if Eddie Nketiah hadn't scored on the first game back. I think that's given him momentum and it's given him confidence to push forward. Yes, he's a different type of forward to Jesus. You know, he's not someone that's going to receive, dribble and take people on. He'll spin in behind. He'll run in behind the opposition. But at the same time, you know, he provides a good goal-scoring threat. I think he's more of a natural goal scorer, you'd say, than Jesus. I think he takes his chances a little bit better. Scored, of course, against West Ham in that first game back. And, of course, grabbed the brace against Oxford United. And I think he'll provide a lot of threat. I think with this Spurs, you know, back 3 where you can kind of get at them is, you know, running from that central position onto either of the outside centre-backs, or maybe staying a little bit wider and attacking that ball in the way. You know, the big thing when you're playing a back 3 is to pull them back, is to turn them and then look for the cutbacks. Eddie Nketiah is that perfect striker to shift it a little bit, drop a shoulder, create a little yard of space for himself in the penalty area and score. Paul's in the chat, don't think Arsenal can cope without signing a striker for the title because of Jesus. Look, if they lost Nketiah, they're in a bit of a problem, aren't they? But Mudryk is set to join Arsenal. And, you know, as much as we've spoke about Mudryk as a wide player to come in and play on the left wing, that's his natural position, we could see Martinelli take that central role, or we could even see Mudryk taking that attacking position himself. You know, he's a player of great pace. He's a player that likes space. And I do think it's kind of, he could work in either position, but probably more Martinelli's a better player to play that false 9 role. Mudryk is, you know, an intelligent player, good on the ball, good on the dribble. It was a game against Leipzig in the Champions League where he didn't have a kick in the first half against Simicon. Second half, he created space between himself and Simicon. Scored a goal, got an assist, fantastic performance, but smart player. I think that's why Arsenal are going for him. Obviously, they're probably not going to have him for the North London derby, but going forward would be a great squad player and would massively help Arsenal's title challenge, I think, because that allows Martinelli to play as the 9 in there and gives them a little bit more coverage for the Gabriel Jesus injury. But yeah, this is going to be the setup for Arsenal, I think. Zinchenko inverted, front 5 created in an attacking sense. The one player that I'd potentially, might potentially start the game if Saka's injury is worse than it's feared, Fabio Vieira. I absolutely love Fabio Vieira. I think he is a superb footballer. Made a video on the Clips channel basically saying that Arsenal long term, you know, he's going to become their kind of star guy going through the back end of the season. And I think his creativity kind of suits this Arsenal team with Gabriel Jesus injured in a sense of instead of Jesus being the guy that's kind of, dropping off the line, that's receiving passes, that's creating himself, that's dribbling, carrying the ball in there. With Eddie Nketiah, it's more of, going from a false nine to maybe more of an advanced forward, a player that's going to play higher up the pitch. He will link the play, don't get me wrong, but a player that naturally is going to be making those runs. And Fabio Vieira, in any of the attacking positions, let's say plays central midfield instead of Xhaka, or comes in to replace Saka because of injury, he's got that creativity. He's got that little bit of nous. And I like the duality of having Odegaard and Fabio Vieira on one flank. And it allows Arsenal to have real creativity in that final third. Of course, Odegaard, player of the month in November and December in the Premier League. He's had a great season. He's improving. But having extra chance creation in the final third could be important. We could also see maybe when Saka's fit, Martinelli playing through the middle, Saka on the left wing, or Nketiah through the middle, Martinelli on the bench to come on with Fabio Vieira in that creation. Of course, Fabio Vieira absolutely starred actually in a central midfield position, basically coming in to replace Martin Odegaard's creativity against Oxford United. 2 assists, 4 chances created, 4 out of his 8 crosses completed, 2 big chances. And we can kind of see with his position that it's a little bit more right-sided than kind of previously. But it's that inside right channel that he really, really did well. And there's that duality of him going wide, going high. Wouldn't be surprised to see him start this game if Saka's not fit in the match. Simply Arsenal, basically just replacing the England superstar with the Portuguese superstar. And I want to see that going forward, how well he can play. Spurs, from a counter-attacking perspective, I think a lot of the game comes down the left-hand side, with Heung-min Son and Perisic. That's an area where, you could really get at that Arsenal backline in the transition. Perisic carrying, Son carrying, and so forth. I think that's going to be a real area of the pitch where Spurs are going to try and overload Saliba and Ben White. Not many teams have done that effectively, so that could be the one. Ed, I go polar opposites, creative but not much else. Only watch Arsenal highlights. Vieira is a class player. His ability in tight spaces and his creativity is phenomenal. He's going to be a star player for them in the future for sure. Yeah, I think he really is going to be there. I think he's got great talent. I think long term, even playing him in attacking midfield would be great to watch. That would be a fantastic Arsenal team in there. But look, go back to Spurs. Obviously, Son, making those runs from in to out, I think it's going to be very important if Conte does go with the 2 attacking midfielders instead of the 2 wide players that he may go with. I think Son's transition with, Perisic overlapping could be a good way to get at Ben White. We know Kane's going to drop off into those areas, so Partey has got to protect those, those situations and not allow Spurs to, play a few quick passes and get the ball into Kane's feet. Because if he can get turned, you've got a serious problem. And Harry Kane is, I've seen a lot of chat about Harry Kane this week of, Harry Kane's not a success because he's not won a trophy. I get where that's coming from, but Harry Kane has scored so many goals in his career so far that I don't think we can class him as not being a success. 198 goals in the Premier League. I do believe that trophies, we'll look back and we'll think, he should have won a trophy, but still, one of the best goal scorers ever. I think he's got to move in the summer. I think the summer's the time for Harry Kane to go to Real, to go to Bayern, and then win some trophies so we can all just enjoy it. You know what I mean? We can all enjoy it. But stopping Kane on the ball, vitally important for Arsenal. I think looking to deal with those balls into his feet, very, very important. It's going to be a deep block from Spurs. They're going to, sit deep. They're going to look to hit Arsenal on the counter-attack. It's all about Arsenal unlocking the door, which should make for a really good game of football. I think both games this weekend, the Manchester derby and the North London derby, are going to be great games of football. Got to set your reminders for that. But yeah, last little thoughts. I'd probably go, Arsenal to fully control this game because I think that Conte's not going to adjust and Partey is going to run the show. Guys, get into the comments right this second. Your score predictions. Rob, Kane to MUFC. I would like that a lot, Rob. That would be very good. Weghorst, Kane, together. Ad Nketiah has really impressed me. Amazed how he's played and finished all those chances recently. Not as useless as people think. But yeah, get your score predictions in for this North London derby, guys. Let me know how you think it's going to go. Ed's on the other side of the Harry Kane to Man United vibe. God, no. But get your score predictions in, guys, for this game. I'm probably going to go, I think Arsenal. I'm going to go Arsenal 3-2. I think they'll take the lead. I think there'll be a late comeback from Spurs. I think it'll be a little bit like the, was it the game from last season? Where Arsenal were clean and dry and ready to go. Ed is going to go 2-1 to Spurs. Arsenal's title race in jeopardy. In the Premier League. It is a big month for Arsenal. Really big month for Arsenal. If they can get through this month, the title is on. Johnny, 5 alive, is going to go 4-1 to Arsenal. Tijas is going to go 3-1 to Arsenal. Hopefully Spurs get something from Rob. That'll be probably the best for United because it'll close the pack. Spurs have played an extra game than United. United sit 2 points clear. So that could be the one. Ed, I admit my heart says Spurs win. Head says a draw. Alex in the chat is going to go 2-1 to Spurs. Nikos is going to go for a 2-2. Desmond draw. Chris, the original, is going to go 2-2. Spurs will turn up. And Rob's going to go MUFC to beat City. Arsenal lose. United win the league. I'll tell you what, guys. That would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun. But thanks to everyone that stopped by today. It's been a fantastic stream. Thanks to everyone getting involved in the chat as well. You wonderful people. We're going to be live every Friday, 12:30. Premier League preview. It's returned. We are back. Much love to all you wonderful people. Get into the comments your score predictions. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the game. Late shout for I want goals. Come on, Arsenal, 3-1. Berber's going to go 4-4. Chad, 3-1 Arsenal. Lovely, jubbly. Guys, that's going to be a wrap for today. Thanks for everyone that stopped by. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. We'll be back next Friday at 12:30 to do some more Premier League previewing. But also, the review returns on Monday as well. So make sure you check that one out as well. But big GGs, much love, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Goodbye.